Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk, sitting in for Frank Holtzhauser this evening. If you want to give us a call and join in on the conversation, we're going to be covering a wide range of topics. The phone number here is 255-0077. Again, that's 255-0077 if you're in the Des Moines area. If you're outside the Des Moines area, add an area code. That's going to be 515-255-0077. Joining me this evening is actor extraordinaire, pro wrestling connoisseur, libertarian activist, and a good friend of mine, of course, Mr. Jason Rainwater. How are we doing tonight, Jason?
Not good, Dave.
Not good?
Not good.
Why is that?
Terrible news crossed over my cell phone just an hour ago.
You already told me about it, but I'm going to play dumb just for the sake of theatrics here. What happened?
Breaking news across the WWE app. AJ Lee, former Divas champion, is retiring from in-ring competition.
All right, cancel the show. We're done.
We're done.
No, that stinks.
It does stink.
Yeah, that's terrible. I wonder what the deal is.
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
We'll get into that probably later on when we're just talking amongst ourselves. But when you unfollow your husband on Twitter, and
she unfollowed her husband on Twitter.
She did, and then
probably that was corporate mandated.
Probably. So, but yeah, I got that just before I got in the building. So,
oh wow,
let's pick myself up today.
Well, I was going to say this week was also the great week for pro wrestling fans. It was WrestleMania weekend.
Yes.
So I was going to ask, how did you like WrestleMania 31, which happened this Sunday?
I stayed up till 2 a.m. to watch the whole broadcast. So I thought it was a pretty good show all the way around.
I know. I was not expecting. I was expecting pretty much the same level of what WrestleMania 29 was, and that was not much.
No.
But no, they really delivered. No match really stood out as being, oh, this is a classic.
Mm-hmm.
There were some fun moments, but it was just solid all around. It was a solid show. And of course, Seth Rollins becoming the first Iowan.
That's right.
To walk away with the WWE
Davenport,
World
Iowa
Heavyweight Championship through nefarious means, of course.
But that's perfect. I like it from a nefarious means. It fits the heel character.
Exactly. No, it was just a really, really well done show.
It was.
Very entertaining all around. The one thing that was raised, I think it was in a Des Moines Register article about it, was Seth Rollins is the first WWE champion to be younger than WrestleMania itself. So he's 28 years old, and this was WrestleMania 31.
Oh crap, that's going to happen a lot then.
Right. It's kind of like Clinton was the first non-World War II generation president. Now we've got the... obviously, this is completely apples to oranges.
True,
here,
very true.
It is the most important thing that's happening.
It was. I had to get it out of the way, and you're welcome.
So let's see here. There were a number of different things bouncing around in my mind this week. I was in the shower a couple of days ago, talking about the false left-right paradigm. These are the things that I think about when I'm.
Was there anybody else that you were talking to,
no,
or is this just strictly to the mirror?
Yes, I have a full-length mirror in my shower.
Well, who doesn't?
Exactly. Do we have a call already, Maddie? Someone wants to call in about this shower. Anyway, I was thinking about the false left-right paradigm, and I've referred to that many times on this show, but I'm not sure if people really understand what it is that I'm talking about when I say that there's no difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, because people look at it as, well, gee, the Democrats are for, taking my guns, the Democrats are for abortion and everything like that.
Well, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, the paradigm that we're talking about, I mean, some people call it a false left-right paradigm, is established that even though that there is a pretext and a show of a two-party system,
right?
In all actuality, there's one party.
Exactly.
Taking the extremes of one issue, one party taking one extreme of one issue, the other party taking the other, and constantly lobbing grenades at each other.
Well, the thing that sprang to mind while I was in the shower was like everything that the globalists do. It's all kind of shaped as kind of a pyramid. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I want to call it a pyramid scheme or something like that.
Call it that.
Yeah,
call it a Ponzi scheme. Call it a pyramid scheme. Whatever you like.
Let's see. I've got my paper here. So we've got this giant got the giant pyramid right here. So at the very top, you got the people that run everything. That's a terrible circle. You can't really see that. So you got the upper echelon here. These are people like probably above presidents, people
statesmen
like
or kingmakers,
right.
I like to call them.
So I like to think of it like this. So we've got the very base of the pyramid here. That would be the masses. So you got the people over here on the left. And then you got the people over here on the right, all the way down here. So look at where we are. You can think about the sides of the pyramids as issues on descending levels. Yeah. So think of where the masses are positioned at the base here. Now you get a little bit higher. You've got local governments and things like that. They would fit along here. You've got going up a little bit farther. You got the congressional level. You got senatorial level. You got non-governmental organizations. You've got different corporations and stuff like that. But look how close those two sides get the farther up you get to the pyramid there.
Oh, exactly.
Right, well, until you get to the very top here. So you got Pelosi and Obama over here. I'll just put PO.
The way your pyramid's working, I mean, it's similar to how Rome's republic was.
Sure.
Was that at the very top were your consul and proconsul, and they sat at the very top, and issues didn't evolve. They already knew what the answer was going to be. And then beneath them, you had the Senate, and there was a various levels of senatorial members in there. Then you had the plebes, who were the ones that were really living with the policies that were established, and everyone above them was basically disenchanted from all of that because it didn't affect them.
Right.
It doesn't affect them. So when, even here at the state level, when they pass a gas tax, to them it's not a big deal. It's 6 more cents onto what was already what the gas tax was. But for people who are in the masses who are really discussing and have actual, what I would call a republic type democracy amongst each other, we make arguments, we may disagree, and somehow we find some way to form an opinion together, are the ones who are affected. 6 cents to somebody who makes $100,000, not a big deal. 6 cents to somebody who makes $25,000. That's a big deal.
That is a big deal. That is a big deal. That's why sales tax and the gas tax, those are pretty unfair taxes.
Yeah. Well, all taxes are unfair.
Right, right, but they're unfair taxes to the poor and working class. So I guess to finish up with the analogy here, so you've got your upper echelons here, and then they roll these issues down. And they roll them all the way down. These are the political football issues like gay marriage, abortion, things like that. They roll them all the way down here. So when they finally get to the bottom, you've got these extreme elements on both sides. They're
allowed to pinball that particular argument back and forth.
Exactly.
And so that there's never really an answer when already they have designed what the answer is going to be.
Right. So this is called divide and conquer.
Yes.
It's compartmentalization. That's really how it should be viewed.
Exactly. And the way your pyramid's working is that real democracy at the bottom is happening.
Right.
But as you grow into a larger position, you become more corrupt, you become more insular, you become more towards where you're like, well, we actually do agree on every philosophy that we have. Even though we may not share the same mental thought in what that philosophy is, we want that power centralized. And that's what the very top has.
So what happens if you add a third party to this mix?
Well, there's no such thing as third parties.
Right. Well, I was just going to say, I envisioned what happens if you got a third party coming into this mix. Oh, well, now we're dividing it up. Now it's harder to roll those issues down. What happens if we add a fourth party, fifth party, sixth party? Boom, 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 boom. They don't have the control anymore.
Exactly.
That's why it's important to get out of this team mentality.
There was I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he had a theory in regards to our system of government, was that in a whole, we are a two-party system. How people see our government is as a two-party system. And that even though we may recognize a third party, a fourth party, to an umpteenth party, regardless, two forces are always going to dominate, no matter how many that you introduce. So as much as the movements keep moving forward, it could be the Whig Party, very powerful, that faded away. It was the Republican Party in the Reconstruction era that very powerful and started to fade away. The Dixiecrats started to fade away. These factions within the groups that we would consider a different type of party were basically absorbed They were absorbed into that two-party system because that's what's most controllable. If you introduce, and this is just me speaking as if I was an overlord or something, if you introduce more and more party affiliates, you lose your ability to control the argument.
Exactly, and that's why I think it's important to try and get those elements introduced. What was the other? Oh, I was going to say I often do view you as my overlord. I welcome my new overlord master.
Thank you.
There.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's what I was thinking about earlier today, and I'm sure I had other points to that as well. But
you were in the shower.
I was in the shower. I had to clean up. Yeah. We've got a caller apparently. We've got Tom. Tom has a question.
Hello, Tom.
How you doing? Just wanted you guys' opinion on what's been going on in Indiana with when they tried to pass that Religious Rights Protection Act and had a few complaints. And what's your opinion on that?
Well, we've got that on the list, actually,
yes,
Tom. My opinion on that, I think it's actually it's a good bill. It's a good bill. Here's the reason why. If let's say that you've got a gay couple that's running a bakery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I come in and I say, "Hey guys, I'd like you to bake a plethora of cakes. I'm a Christian. I run this camp for teens who are at risk of homosexuality, and it's basically a pray away the gay camp. So we'd like you to provide a number of cakes and everything for a welcoming ceremony for our new class." Don't you think that gay couple running the bakery, don't you think they would have the right to say, "No, thank you, we don't want to do business with you because we don't agree with your stance"?
Absolutely. Hey, I just found I shared something. This guy actually went into like a Muslim bakery and asked for a gay wedding cake, and he filmed it with hidden camera, and it's on. I just posted it to Frank's Facebook page if you want to look at it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I don't know what the original source is. I just haven't had time to research it, but yeah, it sounds great. And he on the phone. I don't know if it's the same video, but on the phone he called known gay bakeries and asked to have them bake a marriage-only cake, and you wouldn't believe the curse words he heard.
And that's the thing. That's their right, though, to refuse service to people like that who threaten their way of life.
Well, I would say it's their right to decline participating in a wedding because Jesus Christ spoke specifically about marriage. And so it's clear what a Christian's view is because he said it. Now, what they try and do is make it about hating people. They always do that. They say, "Well, just admit that it's because you hate gays." Well, no. Well, gosh, I'm trying to prevent them from committing to a lifestyle that will not get them into heaven. So it sounds pretty loving to me to say, "No, I can't help you with this."
Yeah, and especially with this law here, exactly what you said, Tom. It's not about hate. It's about a choice, a freedom of expression, a freedom of religion that's covered in the Constitution under the Bill of Rights. These extenuous religious freedom acts that are in the 20 states right now basically just reinforce that you have the right to expression. What they want to lead to is that it's always hate speech. Mm-hmm. If you deny something, it's hate speech. You hate my lifestyle. I didn't say that. I said I just don't feel comfortable with participating in a gay wedding. And that is what the main topic is that it's about gay marriage. Everything else is secondary. You have your pyramid out right there before. Gay marriage was at the top, and it trickles down, and then it becomes not about gay marriage, it becomes about gay rights. It's not about gay rights anymore. It's about that you hate my lifestyle. It's not about you hate my lifestyle anymore. It means you want to cause physical harm to me now.
And I think the end game really ultimately is the outlaw of Christianity. And I know that's kind of an extreme statement to make, but I think that is where it's going.
Well, these religious freedom acts that are introduced into the states were actually to protect Muslim and other style of religions outside of Christianity.
Sure.
That's what they were established for when they originally was to protect the minority religions. Now it's being flipped around, and they're asking government to dictate that it has to be flipped around. But guess what? What government introduced several years back? Jim Crow. So you want hypocrites of the government to reintroduce something that would be similar to Jim Crow in its way.
All right, we're going to our first commercial break. We'll be back in a couple minutes. This is Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Good evening. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live here on WebcastOneLive.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk, sitting in for Frank Holzhauser. With me riding shotgun today is Mr. Jason Rainwater.
And alienating my entire theater base.
That's what we're here for.
Right.
If you want to give us a call, 255-0077 is the number. If you're outside of Des Moines, it's 515-255-0077. We also have Tom on the line. He was raising some points about the gay marriage thing that's going on in Indiana, the Religious Freedom Act. Tom, did you have any other points that you wanted to raise today?
Well, yeah. See, no. I try not to use the B word.
What's the B word?
Boycott.
Boycott.
Because
Okay. All right.
Once you say that, you get, oh no, we don't want to start this group warring against that group and saying we won't participate in those businesses because they're supporting this or they're supporting that. Well, I'm not asking for a boycott. I'm asking every Christian to consider where he's going and what the leadership of that company is doing and saying and support. Like the head of Apple has been criticizing. He said, oh, I want to boycott Indiana. Well, guess what? I want to boycott Apple, and he is the height of hypocrisy. He sells iPods in countries that kill homosexuals, but it's yet Indiana is the hateful one because they don't want to bake a cake for their wedding. So
let me mention the governor of Connecticut stepped out against the Indiana law when he has the same law on his books, which is far more harsh in the way that you can interpret it. And he would say, we didn't have any of that on our books. We would never have that. Well, the law sits right there on it. Did he not read his own?
You know, I'm going to quit playing nice with these lefties. Here's my plan. The next time I see this news reporter gave me a thumbs down. He didn't mention me by name, but I know he was talking about me and saying, you know, I stood up for asked politicians about protecting my religious freedom a few weeks back, and he wrote, social conservative, whining about gay marriage, don't they know it's equality for all and all this blankety blank. Next time I see him, I'm going to go up to him and say, you know, I just wonder, how do you sleep at night knowing you support the killing of the unborn, just cutting them into pieces while they're still alive? Do you think you'll meet them in heaven someday? What will you say to them? Do you ever think about that?
I don't think they even care.
To think about.
What was that? I'm sorry.
I said, give them something to think about at night.
Yeah.
They think, they're trying to scare us that if we speak our mind, we better hide and never do it again. Well, guess what? I'm going to speak my mind and let them think about the consequences of the things they support. I mean, because of this movement, now you've got confused young men in the girls' bathroom, in the girls' locker room, in different schools, exposing themselves to the girls, who the girls want nothing to do with it. But they're confused, so the rest of us have to be hurt by having them in there. And that's all based on the idea that, it's all about pleasuring yourself. And if you like it, that makes it right, period. That goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Eve bit the apple because she wanted to be like God and decide good and evil for herself. She wanted that power. She just didn't want to follow God's instructions anymore. I want to be the one to decide. I want to know about good and evil and not just listen when God says you can do anything but this one little thing, don't eat the apple off this one tree. And that was his only instruction, and they couldn't deal with it because, gosh, the serpent said I could be like God. And isn't that what everybody wants, to be like God?
Whether they have a higher power or not, I think people try to bridge themselves to something morally superior.
Yeah, they want to be the god of their own little quasi-universe.
I mean, if I take this back constitutionally, which I love to do, there was never the time when the Constitution established that our delegates wanted social issues to be directed by the government. There's a lot of times when people, especially myself, like being a libertarian, when they say, "What's your opinion on gay marriage?" My answer was always going to be, "Yes, I have an opinion." Because that's all that matters. On a government standpoint, the only thing government was meant to do was to establish commerce and regulate trade. That was its basis. It has grown to a point where people can use government to enact social reform, and that's a problem.
And the Constitution writers specifically said that the courts don't make law. They said by saying only the legislature can make law. So what do we do now? Now we follow court opinions like their law. And the gay marriage crowd was smart in following what happened with abortion. It's not a law. It's a court opinion. But we treat it like law. So they said, hey, we can get gay marriage the same way. You just get in front of a judge. He'll say you have the right to get married, and everybody will treat it like law because we've seen it happen before.
And I don't understand why don't getting back to how the law kind of covers gay couples' rights as well, gay business owners' rights to not have to serve things that they don't agree with. How come the people who are so against and outraged about Indiana, like this is the biggest thing on social media, this is the biggest injustice in the country right now is Indiana. How come they don't think about that other side of the issue? The point that I raised, like what if it's a Muslim business, or what if it's a gay bakery?
Well, it doesn't fit the argument.
Exactly.
You mold the argument to how you want it to be. I put it as, you're going to hear this from all the pundits and all the people who talk on talk radio and from us, is that if you flip it to the other side, and if you ask a Jewish baker, and we're going to use bakers as a kind of our deal, Joe the baker, a Jewish baker, to ask him to make a Nazi emblemed cake, you would say, oh, he has every right to deny that.
Sure.
Mark Levin had on his program a poll that stated
Mark Levin
on a poll that 65% of those surveyed, 65% did not agree with fining or boycotting a business based on their religious belief. Mm-hmm. Only 24% agreed that some sort of boycott or them being pushed out of business was in order. So what's happening is there's a very vocal minority and a majority that's slightly afraid, and I can understand why they'd be afraid. To be labeled, words, unfortunately in this day and age, words can hurt, and people take it that way, and you can label someone anything. You could call me a bigot right now, and you can constantly keep going, bigot, 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 bigot. After a while, that's all people ever will hear. They won't hear Jason, they'll hear bigot.
Exactly.
So that's what people are afraid of. And that's
Right.
what they're afraid to stand up for, because if you tried to go, no, 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 and the worst argument I always hear with this, like, no, I have a bunch of friends that are gay. Because you're trying to be like, no, I'm not insular that way. Well,
Sure.
well, how many friends do you have that are gay?
Yeah, what's the criteria for
Right.
having a valid opinion?
See, and you can turn around their argument. You're like, I'm a Christian. I don't agree with gay marriage. That's why I didn't want to participate. Well, why don't you agree with gay marriage? Well, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. Well, did you know nowadays that doesn't matter anymore? Well, I get that. I guess I can understand that in a social order, but I still, on my core beliefs, or what I choose as my agency to live my life, I don't agree with it. Well, how can you live that way? The rest of the group of the people here don't live that way.
Right.
You're different, and
Right.
we don't like it.
When they claim to be the protectors of all who are different.
Yes. And then you go and look back into like when President Clinton signed the Defense of Marriage Act that they fought to get off the books. It was a Democrat who signed that into law.
Sure.
It was Dixiecrats that introduced Jim Crow. So the party that sits there and says that, we have to support these folks, we have to make sure that we're taking care of them, we're not doing that in the past. We're not taking care of the group they champion. Mm-hmm. And somehow every conservative gets backed into a corner where they have to. Mike Pence was the worst at it. He was backed into a corner. He was sweating. He was stuttering. He was stumbling. I'm like, how can you not understand the act that you signed into law? Did you not look at it? Are you so ensnared by the mainstream media and how this is being played out that you can't give an argument? And it leads back to the paradigm of the left-right.
Right.
Because I don't think they wanted an answer from him, and he went along with party line.
It's turned into a political football issue, and you've got that great divide like we were talking about earlier.
Well, and that's a Saul Alinsky tactic. Isolate your opponent.
Yep.
Blame him for everything that's wrong. Try and make him feel like he's all alone in his opinion, and that everybody sees him as evil, and he's the bully, and you are the victim of him. And do that constantly. And now the bully is any Christian who stands up for the word of Jesus. I mean, I heard a CNN reporter quote Jesus, and the guy who he was talking to, of course, he was for gay marriage. And the guy who was talking, he said, well, I'm glad you think Jesus' words are important. And about marriage, he said it's one man, one woman. So how can you say they're important sometimes and not important other times? Either he's God's son or he's not. And if he is, all his words are important. If he's not, none of his words are important.
Mm-hmm. And from a personal standpoint, I agree with you. If your view is of marriage is traditional, one man and one woman, that guides your agency in your life. And if people choose to follow along with you on that, that is their choice and their agency. What government needs to stay out of is telling you what that choice is.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And the great thing is you don't even have to be a Christian to see that gay marriage is a bad idea. I mean, no two women, no two men are ever going to produce a child that's the product of the two of them. So why do we need to sanction that relationship by the government in any form, in any way? I mean, if they want to change the rules of insurance so that they can, visit their friend, their partner when they're sick in the hospital or something, work on that. But they want marriage because they want the prestige of the institution, and they don't want anybody telling them. And they want to be able to punish people who used to tell them what you're doing isn't right or made them feel like they're out of place because they are out of place. It's just nature that tells them that. Or, if you're smart enough to believe in God, it's God. But if you don't believe in God, it's nature. You go to a hardware store, there's a nuts and bolts section if you don't know how the whole thing works. And, that explains it pretty well. You need one of each. And that's why we sanction that institution of one man, one woman marriage, because it produces children. And those two people are supposed to be responsible for those children. Otherwise, the government has no business licensing relationships that don't. And, I mean, I've got a friend down the street I talk to a lot. The government never issued me a license to make sure I treat him right, and why should they? Because, we're never going to have any kids together. So there was never any reason for it in the first place other than a certain group wanted the prestige of being able to say, yes, that institution applies to us too.
Well, if you're like David and I, we don't think government should sanction anything.
Right.
when it becomes to our personal lives. So it's just
exactly. And
quite honestly, go across there. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I personally, I don't have a problem if, Susie and Sandy want to spend the rest of their lives together, if they want to, have a civil union or whatever. I personally, I don't have a problem with it. It's against my religious beliefs, but they're going to do it anyway.
When, like I said, it's your agency to live the way you choose.
Right.
I don't let what my choices and my belief and how I want my family to be guide someone else's. And the folks that we speak of, I love them to death. I absolutely do. And I don't want this to go back to being where, he's a bigot for only believing that a man and a woman can be married. That's for my decision. That's my choice.
Right.
How other people decide to live their lives is perfectly fine, because I still love them as a person as they are. I enjoy spending time with them, because how you make friends is if you bond with interest, you bond with hobbies, you bond with the ability to spend time together. And that's what's important. Everything else is basically a secondary issue, and that's why I don't want this type of stuff being discussed by the government, because the government screws up everything. Anytime they touch anything, it becomes bloated, it becomes corrupt, and that's what's becoming with marriage, be it gay marriage, be it traditional marriage, be it anything that you want to label it as. It has become a corrupt system. It's become a corrupt argument, which it should never have been, because it's not a government issue.
Exactly, and I think the most dangerous thing...
Thanks for letting me have my say, guys. I'm going to go, okay?
All right, Tom. Thanks very much. Got about 1 minute left. I was going to say, I think what's even more dangerous is the attitude of people like Chuck Schumer, who in 2014 said that people with religious beliefs, he was talking about the Obamacare mandate, he said people with religious beliefs who disagree with the Obamacare contraception mandate should be given a choice between living by their faith or being allowed to form a corporation to do business. So basically, if you don't agree with this thing because of your religion, then you shouldn't be allowed to do business. Yeah. You shouldn't be allowed a livelihood.
Remind me to tell a story of what Obamacare did in my house if we come back from the break.
All right. Well, we're coming up on the halfway point. This is Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kaniuk sitting in for Frank Holzhauser. When we come back, we're going to cover Jade Helm. What's a Jade Helm and what does it mean for you? Find out after these messages.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
All right, we're back, everybody, here on Frankly Speaking Live here at webcast1live.com. If you want to give us a call, the number here is 244-0077.
Is this the first time you've done this show?
You know, one would think so. Little bit off tonight.
It's like it's going to be a running gag anytime we're here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to give out a different number each night. 244-0077 if you're outside of Des Moines. 515. Is that the right area code?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 619?
Yeah.
San Diego.
I show up here every once in a while. 515-244-0077. We were just finishing up the discussion on Indiana. Here's the thing about Indiana. I'm more concerned with the fact that not everybody's rights are being covered. Whether you're gay, straight, Muslim, Jew, whatever, I'm more upset that people seem to believe that you have to do anything that you want regardless of what your beliefs are. I would be upset if I were a Jew, like in the example that you had.
Yep.
You know, having to bake a cake with a Nazi swastika on it. As a Christian, I wouldn't want to do anything for a Wiccan ceremony, et cetera, et cetera. But where it's coming down to is the issue of gay marriage, and they're trying to push that as the forefront and make that a political football issue, and that gets back into the point that I was making at the top of the show about the false left-right paradigm and dividing people. Because if people really gave thought to this, they would realize that it is an equal rights thing, and that people should have the equal rights to be able to refuse service. And I'm not talking about, if you're black, just be able to kick you out of a diner.
And that was, I remember that was a topic that was touched on, was like, well, what if it goes back to being where they say blacks can't come into a restaurant? Well, I'm going to say this right now. Do you know a huge rash of racist people living in your city or town that would accept that? Would they go to that restaurant? Well, more than likely than 98% of the time, they're not going to go there, and the free market's going to eliminate that restaurant.
Boom.
What you're touching on is human rights. Mm-hmm. And the problem that we have in this country is that we take those human rights and then we start creating sex out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Gay rights, transgender rights, heterosexual rights, rights of little people, rights of the handicapped. We compartmentalize it so much that we create the offensive nature of it.
Right.
We create the argument, and if we basically said it as, here's your human right. If there is someone foolish enough out there to say, I don't want black people to come to my restaurant, they're going to be out of business. I don't know of any place here in the United States to be like, oh, I'm going to still go there because they make great pancakes. And I get kind of tired of the argument that America's this great racist country. They have no idea what racism is here.
Exactly.
In the past, yes, I totally understand. There was slavery, there was lynch mobs, things like that. But understand...
Yeah, but this isn't the only nation in the history of the world to have had slavery.
Understand right now, in Italy, they have a representative of their government. She is from the Congo. She immigrated to Italy legally. Mm-hmm. She became an elected official. On the day that she was elected and was being sworn in, members of the assembly that she was now a part of were throwing bananas at her and calling her a monkey.
Good night.
I go, do you really think that would happen in a state house today? Do you really think that would happen in the House of Representatives? It's not going to happen.
Right.
You have to. Nobody wants to hear that comparison because we want us to believe that we're completely and totally bigot and racist and homophobic in any of those ways, because it creates controversy, because we love bad news.
Exactly. Well, speaking of bad news, let's go on to a couple of other things that I wanted to cover tonight. Is the U.S. Army preparing for martial law roundups? An exercise that's being held down in southern states, such as Texas, New Mexico, and Florida, a number of other states, called Jade Helm, is very, very concerning here. We've got troops that are that are training to operate undetected amongst civilian populations. Now, the Army is claiming that this is training them for overseas combat and everything.
Well, yeah, I have a Washington Post story that says that. Here's the title of it, and then we'll get into what the actual deal is, but this is the title that the Washington Post put. Why Operation Jade Helm 15 is freaking out the internet, and why it shouldn't be. And then tries to say, well, this is just a regular, combat operation that they do for training and whatnot. They learn to invade a country by creating a map of the United States and creating different countries out of it so we can understand where we can have our hot zones to attack to. That's what the spin is. And then there was what it actually is. So I'll let you go.
Exactly. Well, to give a little background for those unfamiliar, Jade Helm is a challenging 8-week joint military and interagency unconventional warfare exercise conducted throughout Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado.
Oh, my.
According to an unclassified military document announcing the training drill, which runs from July 15th through September 15th. Multiple branches of the U.S. military, including Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and the 82nd Airborne Division, will participate in the 8-week-long exercise, which may result in, quote, increased aircraft in the area at night. In other words, they're going to be running Black Hawk helicopters over people's heads in residential areas during the dead of night. Troops will be tasked with honing advanced skills in large areas of undeveloped land with low population densities and will work alongside civilians to, quote, gain their trust and an understanding of the issues, unquote. In other words, psychological warfare. The exercise, in which some participants will be wearing civilian clothing and driving civilian vehicles, lists Texas and Utah as hostile territory. According to the document, Texas was chosen due to the state's historically supportive efforts to prepare our soldiers, airmen, Marines, and sailors to fight the enemies of the United States. Despite the document's claims, multiple Army training manuals and studies in the past have specifically targeted such states due to concerns over the growing influence of right-leaning ideologies and groups, such as the Tea Party.
Do you know that the Tea Party or members of right-wing terrorist organizations are the number one threat?
Absolutely.
The FBI most wanted right now.
Absolutely. Well, that goes back to the Missouri Information Analysis Center document that was leaked back in 2009, which outlined Bob Barr, Ron Paul, Chuck Baldwin supporters, anti-abortion advocates, anti-UN advocates, people like that as terrorists that should be watched by state police. And this wasn't just in Missouri. That's just the document that was leaked was from Missouri. But this is something that goes out to the terrorism task force centers of all 50 states, basically. So they're saying that if you support certain political views, you might be a terrorist and you should be watched. Let's see here. Getting back to a leaked 2012 U.S. Army Military Police Training Manual entitled Civil Disturbance Operations described how soldiers would be ordered to confiscate firearms and kill American dissidents. The manual also revealed that prisoners would be detained in temporary internment camps and re-educated to gain a new appreciation of U.S. policies. These are the fun camps that Hillary Clinton referred to a few weeks ago. And if you want to look this up, this is going to be an Army document from February of 2010. This is Army document FM, that's F as in Frank, M as in Michael, 3-39.40. Again, that's 3-39.40. I've got my numbers right this time.
Don't give me Army document talk. You know where I spent 8 years. Come on.
Internment and resettlement options. So if you want to download that PDF, like I've done myself, you can do that and read it yourself. Also in 2012, a Department of Homeland Security-funded study characterized Americans suspicious of centralized federal authority and reverent of individual liberty as extreme right-wing terrorists. In the past, large-scale domestic military exercises have also included foreign countries. And then there's another article that came out talking about Jade Helm and how troops are going to operate undetected amongst the civilian population. See, here's the thing that people don't seem to want to grasp. If you're going to invade a foreign land, why would you practice infiltrating an American civilian population? Because our civilian population is not going to be the same as Iran. No. Our civilian population is not going to be the same as Syria. There's going to be a completely different culture. So how would you be getting accurate training by pretending that by infiltrating our civilian infrastructure? You're not.
Right.
You're training on how to infiltrate civilian groups.
Oh, sure. But if you take this back historically, why do you think the interstate system was established?
The interstate system was established by Eisenhower in the 1950s for the speedy transport of troops and material across the different states. Yeah.
Well, under the impression that if we were invaded by a hostile force, be that Canada or Mexico, but there was a subtext into that. Why the interstate system was developed was because of that speedy movement and being able to infiltrate into a populace. Because whether we agree or not, how it's established is 50 loosely affiliated states, and back in the 50s, it was still somewhat in that kind of that form, and what federalism was going to do. If some state decided to try to secede in any way, they could use that interstate system to move in, take over, martial law.
We had actually a threat a couple of years ago in Texas. The Texas legislator had voted that they were no longer going to allow the TSA to grow up kids, trying to get on flights, grow up old people, things like that. Right. They were going to kick the TSA out, basically. And the government said, okay, if you kick out the TSA, we're going to cordon off your airspace. So they had to back down.
Right.
I mean, this is a threat that actually happened. Let's see. A key component of the controversial Jade Helm military exercise set to take part in 9 U.S. states this summer will involve soldiers operating undetected amongst civilian populations to see if they can infiltrate without being noticed. The realistic military training exercise, which will involve the Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and the 82nd Airborne Division, is set to take place from July 15th through September 15th, but has prompted concerns after Texas and Utah were labeled hostile territory in documents related to the exercise. The Houston Chronicle report reveals that soldiers will attempt to blend in with the local population in an effort to test the effectiveness of infiltration techniques. Residents will be advised to report suspicious activity during the exercise.
You get to participate.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I get to participate.
Look at that.
I feel like I'm helping, guys.
You're helping.
I'm helping my own roundup.
Yeah, you got to start off with when you have a national standing army anyway. That's unconstitutional.
There was a video that came out this past week of roundup exercises being trained in Florida. And a victim of Castro roundups, in an article today, victim of Castro roundups, quote, immensely worried about Jade Helm. A victim of Fidel Castro's mass roundups of dissidents in Cuba has expressed alarm about the upcoming Jade Helm exercise, writing that he is worried immensely about the military drill set to take place in 9 U.S. states this summer. In a letter to the editor of the Corvallis Gazette-Times, Larry Daly remarks that he was shocked to see video out of Fort Lauderdale, which features military and police training together to arrest citizens, as in violation of posse comitatus, by the way, to arrest citizens and take them to internment facilities. It has been more than 55 years since 1961, and the Castro ordered It has been more than 55 years since 1961, and the Castro ordered roundup of suspected resistors in Cuba. According to some press reports, in excess of 200,000 were arrested during the Bay of Pigs, writes Daly. And we'll get back to this coming up after the break. This is Frankly Speaking Live, webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! You're our hero!
All right, welcome back. Our final segment of this week's edition of Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Canduke, sitting in for Frank Holtzhauser. With us riding shotgun is Jason Rainwater, who will be appearing in the Des Moines Playhouse production of Around the World in 80 Days, opening next week at the Des Moines Playhouse. Look what I got in the mail. They can't really see that here, but there's a... Oh, there we go. There's our pal, Jason Rainwater, right there. Folks, you're not going to want to miss that. That's Around the World in 80 Days, opening at the Des Moines Playhouse next week. So get out there and support him. So I guess let's wrap up with Jade Helm and then fire off the last few things as rapidly as we can here. So we've got troops basically training on the streets to infiltrate groups of Americans. What purpose would this serve other than coming against Americans?
Yeah, the special operations is what I call the King's Guard. They're the only ones really allowed in the military now to be armed. The only ones that get regular weapons training. I served 8 years in the Air Force. I had M16 training twice in that time frame because we were disarmed by Clinton during his administration, who stated that while on base, no soldier should carry a weapon. They don't need to carry one. You know, and so that's what's led to a lot of the rashes where gun violence skyrocketed on bases and whatnot. But these special operations troops that are working on these operations here, or these training exercises, are being positioned for guerrilla warfare within a populace, be it Houston, be it San Diego, be it some small town that filled with right-wing wackos, if they want to call it that way.
Exactly. So what's the catalyst event that's going to have to occur to really put that final clamp down and turn these operations live?
Either party that's in, regardless of what the party is, they're creating a fervor as it continues to build, and you can see it if there's items of violence that take place, and then everybody balloons in and creates more and more. Ferguson was very close to where this type of operation could have come into play and silenced a group of people, silenced a town.
But it's got to be something much larger than Ferguson. Is it an economic collapse? Is it a war that's declared? There's something coming. And I've been saying this on this show repeatedly, that I personally don't feel that there's going to be a 2016 election. I feel that the force that has been built up in this country through Department of Homeland Security and everything, and all the different executive orders that are being passed, I really do honestly feel that there's going to be some event that is going to cause a lockdown in this country and suspend the elections.
And even if it doesn't reach to the level that you discussed, there's a thing called electoral despotism, where even if you are voting for an individual or whatnot, you are still leading into a despot being put into office.
Sure.
So even if it does touch the way where it goes into 2016 and no election and we have a president for life, or there's a rigged election, he says, we've terminated the amendment that won't allow me a third term.
Well, they're not going to fight him for amnesty or anything like that. He's already talking about doing an executive order for the UN climate deal. So there's really no opposition from the so-called opposition Republicans.
But look at the past election. What happened? A large majority of Republican conservative candidates were put into office because the populace did not want to see a fundamental transformation of the country. That's what they were elected on.
Exactly.
As soon as the election happened and was over and there was these big victories, and I know you were about to just say it, the debate switched and became, well, how are we going to work best with the president?
Exactly. Bait and switch. Well, a couple of other indications that something major may be coming. Government orders banks to call the cops when customers withdraw $5,000 or more Can you believe that? If you go into a bank and try to withdraw more than $5,000, you may be, having to talk with a cop.
You would have to target like consumer accounts because commercial accounts will withdraw $10,000 in cash. So like businesses and whatnot. So you're gonna call the cops on a business that needs a cash reserve at all times. If they come in and say, I need $9,000, I need this much in ones, this in fives, this in tens. You already have a system where they have to do what's called a cash transaction report.
Right, but that previously was for transactions over 10,000.
Exactly, but which is now 5. If you are cumulative total, if you went in and said I only took out 100, but then 6 hours later I took out $10,001, you have to do a cash transaction report.
Right.
So if that's the case, if government says no, you have to close their account, you're going to terminate their ability to make a living. You're going to terminate somebody who's a consumer account who prefers to carry cash rather than their own debit card. And people will have bank accounts and put large amounts of money and then withdraw because of that security. Before, there were cases where cops were pulling over people who were carrying large amounts of cash.
Right. We had that case in Iowa where the people came from Vegas or whatever with large cash.
Yes, they have
winnings, basically.
And it was seized.
That's under asset forfeiture.
Yes.
And that leads into the story that came out, that bank withdrawal story was from last week, I believe. This week, Justice Department to seize bank accounts without filing charges. U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, who is for some reason still in office even after announcing his resignation months ago, has crafted a new policy that would allow government officials to seize bank accounts involved in financial structuring schemes prior to filing criminal charges against the individuals who own those accounts. So basically they're saying, we think you might be doing something, so we're just going to take your money.
You know what this ties to, what this you can compare it to, is in ancient Rome, if the government was running low on money or the particular Caesar or whoever was in charge was running low on funds or was in massive debt, they would murder off a wealthy patron.
Right.
Take over their accounts. Now, we're not saying what happening with the Justice Department now is murder and somebody's taking their accounts. But what they can do is say, we have a suspicion. We don't have to tell you what that suspicion is, but we really need your money.
Well, this is what people like Steve Quayle and V, the guerrilla economist, were warning about back during the 2012 Greece bailouts, when they basically shut down the banks and siphoned off a bunch of people's money. That type of thing was coming here. So I, as a private citizen, took out a lot of my money from the bank, and if I had taken out that amount now, I would have to have a conversation with the cops.
Right.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. And now the government can just look at, this show and say, well, he's preaching against us. He could be a domestic terrorist, so let's just freeze his bank account and they can steal my money.
Yeah. Well, you can't track cash. If you take money out, you can't track it.
You're right.
What everybody wants to do is they open their wallets, they take out that little piece of plastic, and every time you swipe it, it's indicating you've made a purchase, where you're at, what you were doing. So it's that tracking. It's that ability to track. It's not microchipping, but it's damn near close. Excuse my language. But that's why you're seeing this, is because, well, why would they need to take all that cash out? We have to be able to track them. If they pay with cash, well, I guess we're going to just have to introduce a law or regulation that says you only can pay with cash on a certain level. And it might reach to that. If you make a purchase of $100 and you try to hand them a $100 bill, I'm sorry, government regulation says I can't take over $100 in cash.
Exactly. They do want to track everything. Speaking of tracking, trying to hit this rapid fire in the last minute, Homeland Security renews quest for national license plate tracking system. The Department of Homeland Security is seeking bids from companies able to provide law enforcement officials with access to a national license plate tracking system a year after canceling a similar solicitation over a privacy issue. The reversal comes after officials said that they had determined that they could address concerns raised by civil liberties advocates and lawmakers about the prospect of the department's gaining widespread access without warrants to a system that holds billions of records that reveal drivers' whereabouts. Why do they need to track where we're going? Why do they need to track what we're spending money on? Why do they need to track what we're looking at on the internet?
We have to keep us bloated. We have to make sure that you're full of the cheeseburgers and the reality TV that you really want. That's what they want, a society that is glutton.
It's a system of control that has been put down on us.
Yeah.
It's a literal prison planet that has been constructed. Jason, in the last 30 seconds or anything, any last parting shots for us tonight?
I know that one we were going to cover was climate change and how they continue to discuss how, oh gosh, climate change is now being introduced into the military service. If you're leaving service, you can go right into an environmental job because of climate change issues. Let's just look over climate change in the past, where it was originally global cooling, and then no reputable scientist would agree with it, so it became global warming, and again, no reputable scientist would agree with it, and it became climate change.
Well, you know, Obama's going to declare it to be true anyway, so what does it matter?
And
Lord Obama.
Exactly, and the way the military is being functioned now is not to fight a war other than the special operations divisions. They are now being targeted to be climate change warriors.
Folks, thanks for joining us. This is Frankly Speaking Live on webcast1live.com. Coming up next will be Wayne Carter with Faith That Works. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week.